Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Event Icons. Today, you guys are going to absolutely love our guests that we have on board. While everyone is trying to figure out and scrambling to make their events virtual, this guest turned around their entire in-person event in under 24 hours into a virtual event and seeing smashing success. Literally, the event is going on as we speak. So you will get to hear their learnings as they make this transition and what systems they're using and how they're going through this entire change. So stay tuned. You're not going to want to miss this episode of Event Icons.
It's Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, so you know what that means. It's time for another episode of #Event Icons.
Presented by Endless Events.
The show where you get to ask the icons of the events industry anything.
Just go to www.event-icons.com to ask questions.
Our iconic guests will answer them live during the entire show. Before we get started, the more people we have watching, the better the conversation. So please help share #Event Icons
on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Just tell your friends to watch at www.event-icons.com.
Now, without any further delay, this is #Event Icons.
Well, welcome back, everyone, and I'm really excited. I want to dive into this because there's definitely an hour's worth of content in this and so many learnings that our guest is going to have. I have to welcome to the stage Mark Hillenburg from DMP, the VP of Marketing of Digital Monitoring Products, which is a tech hardware and software company. And you guys have done an incredible turnaround of your in-person event, which was actually an event we were working on together.
That's right.
And now you transform and you did it all in-house. And
yeah. I mean, we had, obviously everything takes a team, but our event that we were working with you guys on was going to be yesterday.
Yes.
And, among other than the actual trade show that we were tagged onto canceling a week or so ago, then the actual hotel that we were at in Las Vegas shuttered operations yesterday. So wow. It's quite a thing going on out there right now.
It's a crazy time. And
right.
So to backtrack a little bit before we get into that, I want to give everyone a little bit of background because events are a big part of your guys' marketing strategy, but I don't know if I would describe you as just an event planner. So can you give everyone a little background into what got you guys into events and kind of what got you to where you are today?
Yeah, for sure. So we are a 45-year-old manufacturing company in the Midwest, Springfield, Missouri, and we manufacture security products. And so we have authorized dealers all over the United States, and we are supporting those dealers with our products. And so just like everyone else, we're looking for new customers, looking to support our existing customers, looking to educate them and bring them along with new products and whatever happens to be happening, new new sales techniques and whatever. So about 5 years ago, we really started working on an event schedule, I would say, where we had regular events around the country. So like everyone else, we did trade shows and we had a trade show booth and, we did all sort of things. But, and trade shows are a great way to attract leads and so forth, but they don't really give you an opportunity to connect, especially with your existing customers. Our sales team, in fact, would even, the instructions for a trade show was to bring somebody in, immediately disqualify them as a potential prospect, and then get them out of the booth, right? So, I mean, the whole strategy is to not spend time with those people. It's to move on because there's thousands and thousands of people and you got to run them through, right? So, trade show kind of leaves a little bit of an empty taste in your mouth if you're not careful. So, we tagged on to the day before our major industry trade show started. We tagged on to something we call it an owners forum, and that's kind of a weird name, and we leverage that. Because in our industry, one, it's very entrepreneurial. A lot of the dealers are owners, second, third generation, and we happen to be, which is also sort of odd this day and age. We happen to be a privately held company where the owners of our dealers, our customers, can come and meet with the owners of our particular company. So we wanted to emphasize that, so we named it that. And so that's our big event. And, it's always in Las Vegas, and it's always the day before a big trade show starts. And we've bounced around for a few places. There's some great venues in Las Vegas, obviously, that do this sort of thing. And we basically just put on a day. We feed them great. We bring in some great keynote speakers. We add just a sprinkling of our own promotion into it. Right around lunchtime happens to be a good time to do that. And then we want to give them some content that can help them grow their business immediately. So that's our big event. And then we do what we call roundtables. We spread those around the country, and we'll have anywhere from 80 to 100 people in a roundtable, and we'll go do that. And literally we set it up as roundtable. We let all of the dealers or all of the attendees lead the content. So, there's we typically do like an hour session or maybe a 30-minute session with 15 minutes of question and answer. And what happens is, our customers have so much more credibility in the eyes of their peers than we do. So we just get to facilitate it, buy everybody a nice meal, take them out to dinner, and then we get to listen to what's important to them and what they need. And then we go back to Springfield and we, huddle around a table and figure out, okay, how can we make products that better support our dealers, and what can we do about this and what can we do about that? So events for us has really evolved over the last 4 or 5 years, and it's a really significant piece of the puzzle of the marketing side of what we do here at DMP. And then all of a sudden, everything started canceling. Airplanes canceled, hotels canceled, venues canceled, and so then you got to figure out what else can you do.
And that's I think the thing that we're going to talk about and solve today. And I do want to give some shout outs to everybody who's watching live right now. Special shout out to Adam Latham, who says, Mark, I used to be a badge hoarder too.
Right.
Which I think shows how many in-person conferences that you guys produce and also attend. I used to be too, until my cat peed on all of them, and then I had to let him go. So I think it's smart that yours they're up high. So
but I had to go. I actually had to go get a wreath hanger to hold them up because my bracket broke off the back of my door.
It was too heavy.
Yeah,
that's awesome. I love it. Well, Mark, I want to dive into it. Walk us through. I think tell the story of obviously, I think everyone's making the decision to either cancel, postpone their events, or go virtual, whatever it may be. So obviously, you guys made that decision. Can you walk me through kind of the start? Like, how did you involve this? How did you decide what the communication was going to be? Let's start with that. Like from the get-go, you decided we're going virtual. What was next?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have again, we had this major trade show, and the day before, everyone's monitoring everything, what's going on. And the trade show is like, no, we're definitely not canceling. It's not going to happen. We're definitely not going to cancel. Here's a letter from the president, date of the day before. It is definitely not going to be canceled. You don't have to worry about that. So we're like, okay, we're in. If it's happening, we're there. And then I'm driving back from lunch literally at noon the next day, and my phone blows up, and it's like, everyone, my sales team across the country, the trade show actually sent out an email to everyone who was registered, including exhibitors and attendees, at the exact same instant. So we had zero notice and said, boom, it's canceled. It's postponed until July, and we don't have dates. And I mean, as much as everyone would love to be in Las Vegas in July, I just think, some people aren't going to be able to make that. And plus, our entire product cycle is centered around this one show. I mean, for us, it's sort of like CES. I mean, it's nothing like CES, but it's similar to CES. Like for our industry, this is the show where you bring out all your new products. And so, I had already, like everyone does probably, there are public relations before a trade show nowadays. You can't just drop it on the day of the trade show. You'll never be seen. So we had already been, counting down new product promotions. We were 6 days into 18 days of new products. And so we're like, what, we just can't stop this. So I got back to the office from lunch. I kind of sent an email to my sales leader and said, hey, can you tell all your sales guys to stop calling me? I get the same information they get. So we're trying to manage this. And so we started thinking about, what can we do? And we had actually done a live webinar, sort of like what you would think of maybe like an ESPN or just a CNN news concept where we had a big desk and we had multi-cameras shoot. And we had done that about 6 months ago for a significantly large private customer. And actually that's kind of a great story too. We pitched that to this customer and we said, we figured out that they had a nonprofit organization that they really adopted as our company. And we said, for every person that signs up and attends this webinar, we will donate $50 to this nonprofit that you've adopted with a max. We put a max on it, max out $5,000, right? So we promoted that, and that was huge. So we had 480 people from this salespeople from this company on our live stream for just that one private event. In fact, the VP of marketing, this is a huge company. The VP of marketing called me later and said, okay, how did you guys do that? Because we can't even get that many of our own employees on a webinar at any given time. How did you do that? And the truth of the matter, like anything, I can't take credit for it. It was one of my sales guys that manages that account that came up with this idea. He drove it home, and it was a home run. I mean, it was great. And our business with those guys has really grown. In fact, we're getting ready to do another one just for them. And we've picked another nonprofit that they love. It's a organization that you buy a bracelet and they clean up trash out of the ocean. It's called 4Ocean. I think it's a great organization. And so we're going to do that for them. But jumping back, I knew that we had the capability to do that particular type of thing. And so I said to my team, hey, let's do a virtual trade show and let's get the email. Like, everyone is reeling and everyone's trying to decide what they're going to do. Let's do it. Let's announce it and get people signing up now. Because I think you pointed out in your podcast maybe on Sunday, that with a live event, you have everyone is just kind of competing for their phone. And then with a virtual event, you're competing with everything, their phone, their kids, the television screen, the news. Literally while we were live a while ago and an earthquake hit Salt Lake City while we're live. Like, what is going on? Right. But so I said, let's get it out there. And I knew that any of the other manufacturers and competitors that we compete with, if they're smart, they're going to be doing the same thing. So we need to jump in. So I swung my team around and I was like, we were on Slack like everybody. And I sent out a message to the whole team and said, okay, this is what we're doing. Here's what I need you to do. I need somebody to go create the Zoom, login details. You guys start working on graphic header, pull up our, MailChimp email marketing, and let's get ready to send an email. We're going to get this whole thing spun up and out before the end of the day. So by 4:00, we found out at noon. By 4:00, we sent out an email to 56,000 of our customers, email content, and started signing people up all through the weekend. And then, of course, we just started dropping it on social and promoting it. And I actually got quite a few phone calls from people in the industry that were like, brilliant. This is what everyone's going to do. But what I was excited about, that our team was able to pull it together and get it turned around within the day. So we literally had the entire weekend jump on everybody else.
That's incredible. So I think I learned, and in almost in general too, I think this can be applied to events. When there was like a crisis, you kind of create a war room and said, all right, you're going to do this, you're going to do this. Like the normal way would be, okay, we'll talk to this person. They'll let them know. Well, like, no, just grab everyone, put them in a room and just start firing off. What can you help with? What can you help with? And everything like that as well. And I think that that's a huge learning as well. And I definitely think you're right. Yeah, you're competing against everything. And I'll be curious to know about you guys' engagement. But talk me through that email.
Yeah.
What did it say? And also, I guess eventually I want to get to is, more attendees, less attendees. What was that? But let's start with the email. What did the email say? And how did you convince people, hey, I know you love this in-person experience, but we're going to do it virtually, and here's why you should attend?
Yeah, so one of the things that with sort of a ready, fire, aim approach, sometimes you don't get it 100% right. So the very first email that we sent out, we'd been promoting the show with a color graphic of our trade show, photo of our trade show booth, and we happen to do laser beams for like 20 years. We've had a laser show on top of our trade show booth, and so we kind of do this look for the lasers kind of tag thing that we do, and so we always have our booth with it's the same look and the lasers thing and all of our promotion. So we've been doing that. So the first thing, the graphic designers, brilliant. This wasn't my idea at all. They just knocked it to black and white, so it would grab it would like get there. It would have some continuity, but they would see that it's different. So they knocked that down to black and white. And I said, let's make the headline not going, or the name of our trade show is ISC, not going to ISC, because I thought that would get everyone's attention, because everyone at that particular moment just found out they're not going to ISC. So I asked a question, not going to ISC. And then, we headlined. So come to, and we started out to promote it as ISC Live. And it turned out that didn't really mean anything to anyone. So we immediately pivoted, even within the copy of the first email, we were calling it a virtual trade show. And so I had a couple, we sent it out, and a couple people were like, well, of course I'm not going to ISC. They just canceled it. Don't you guys know? Hey, you're promoting something. And so, sometimes you can get a little too cute for yourself, right? So then we followed up on Monday with a little cleaner graphic that really just said, started promoting the virtual trade show. And we kind of tried to have some continuity and pull it through. And we're doing a 90-minute webinar or live stream 6 times today, tomorrow, and Friday. So we're doing one in the morning, one in the afternoon. It's the same content. We did a dress rehearsal on Monday for our entire sales and training team, so they could, because they're out in the field and they get a feel for all the new stuff, because they're, one of the things about a trade show is when you introduce new products, they're in some ways they're seeing a lot of it for the first time. I mean, sometimes they've been field testing it and whatever, but in some cases they aren't. So we did a full dress rehearsal, and ironed out some of the wrinkles on the whole thing, and then we went for it. So and basically we're just trying to get people to sign up. So it was a very short, everybody knows the thing's canceled. So we're just trying to get you to sign up for one of our events. And we had, I think after the first, so I think I checked back again on Sunday, we had about 200 people signed up. We had about 450 people signed up as of this morning. Our first one that we just concluded, literally I walked out of the studio and then came in here. We had about 105 people on, and we kept them all on for 90 minutes. Wow. So it was good. And again, that's not me. That is the folks that we have doing it. And we could talk a little bit more about the structure of what the virtual event is like in a minute. But that's kind of how we promoted it.
That's awesome. I think that you brought up a really good point of like, hey, how can people start to create verbiage around this? And I'm sure you guys ran into the same scenario where I'm getting asked all the time, like, so what is this? And what do we call this? And like, what do we call ourselves? And things like, guys, this is like a whole new market. Like you got to come up with a name and help associate it with something that people kind of know. And I love that you guys call it virtual trade show, but I know it's going to, as we talk about the structure of it, it's a little different. I think another big learning as well is that you guys are talking a little bit about the attendee kind of drop off as well. So before we talk about the structure of the event, so you guys had about 400 RSVPs, and just to be clear too, you guys aren't charging for this event, right? It's 100% free.
Oh no.
So 100% free. And you had about 450 people sign up. 109, you said?
104 on this first one, but many of those are watch parties. So, it's a conference room full of their whole sales team watching it. And you can tell that by, the questions. We'll get into kind of the way we did all of that, the question and answer.
I like it, how you guys are able to know based on the questions. That's awesome. Yep. And then are you guys doing any sort of tracking as far as being able to see, you said they're there for the whole 90 minutes. So obviously, they were there from how long they were. Are you able to see how long they had it on screen, or they were flipping it into the background? Are you guys able to see that sort of data yet?
Yeah, we get that is on the tool that we use. We use one of the same tools that everyone uses for this type of thing, and it works good. And we get that sort of information on the readout.
Are you doing that in real time and then kind of adjusting based on that at all?
Well, no. So we're not looking at that in real time and making adjustments. We kind of had a set thing, and we'll see a little bit more about that. But we didn't. We weren't making any adjustments, so we'll see. I mean, we may now. I'll go run the report after. Now that you say that, I need to check on that. Yeah,
yeah. I'm like, oh yeah, like, did you make all these changes? You guys just got done with like literally doing this 15 minutes ago. So
yep.
So I apologize about that.
Yeah, no, it's good. But you could. We've all been on these terrible webinars where you start and there's 20 people and you check back when it's done and there's like 10, and so just them sticking around to the end is pretty good confidence that they're paying attention.
Absolutely.
And I mean, who's actually paying attention when they're walking around a real trade show in Las Vegas anyways? I mean, that's it's hit and miss at best anyways.
Totally. Okay, so I have a ton of questions. By the way, if you're watching this live right now, you can ask questions. That's what this show is all about. It's an Ask Me Anything. We get to dissect into Mark's brain for a full hour. So ask those questions. Let's come on in. I see there's a lot of the chat and people are just kind of talking with each other. And I'm hearing people say, oh my gosh, I need to convert my events to virtual. Please look at this. We need to convert our event to virtual. So I think a lot of people are getting value from this. So I guess let's figure out the best journey for this one. So break me down. Let's do this first. Talk me through your team and how your team's set, because I think that's one of the most incredible things too, is that you guys have just a phenomenal team. So walk me through what is everyone's roles and what are they responsible for when it comes to producing this virtual event?
Sure. So for the virtual event, so the way we're doing that is we've sort of have a like an ESPN, or I said that like a CNN kind of desk. So we have a desk with 4 people on it, and those are product managers, business development, VP of sales, and a VP of software. So they're kind of sitting there behind the desk, and one guy is the host. John is the host. And, one of the things that allows us to pull this together is we have a really amazing culture at the company at DMP. And one of the things about our culture is we actually, if anyone's familiar with Toastmasters, we actually have a Toastmasters built into our company. So at lunch times, once a month, we are always working on public speaking, and we did actual Toastmasters for a few years, and then we sort of dropped the Toastmaster charter and built our own curriculum around our own product. So instead of talking about something else, we actually, everyone would have opportunity to, practice your elevator pitch. Tell us about this new product, right? And so that helps, easily identify people that are great at public speaking. I'm not so great. I can do like off the cuff conversation like this, but as far as prepared things, that's not my forte. But we've got some people that are really great at that. So I was able to just assign, hey, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, and they were like, okay, great, I'm ready to go. We didn't have to write scripts. We didn't have to do anything. We put together, kind of an outline, a slide deck that said, okay, this is the order that we're going in. And when it gets to you, this is yours. You're going to talk about it, and everybody else is going to do color. And they're like, okay, cool, I can handle that. And so, that's kind of the way that we roll as a company. So that's very helpful. If you have guys that, we have one person on our team that is an amazing presenter, unbelievable presenter. He memorizes every word, and he memorizes the inflection of everything that he says. And he's a phenomenal, like anytime he presents anything, everyone we get the highest scores for him. But you can't bring him in like an hour before or 2 days before and say, hey, you're going to do an hour worth of content, right? So that's not the way this goes. So we put those 4 people on as talent, and then on the back end, we have a guy that is really running the switcher. And so he is actually, we're kind of thin, this. He's actually running sound and calling the show at the same time.
No way. Is
Right.
this Barrett? Barrett's
Right.
doing
That's
this.
Barrett. That's Barrett.
That's awesome.
And then Ryan is our video editor, but he also happens to do a live video production and at his church. So he's running the switcher. And then we have Pat, who is our videographer, and he's actually running. He's the video, the camera operator for 4 cameras. So we're doing a 4 camera shoot. One of the cameras is on me, and I'm sitting at a desk with a headset talking to them, monitoring the live Q&A boxes, and then I'll let them know, hey, I've got a question. They cut to the camera to me. I ask the panel the question, and then they answer the question. And so we kind of do the Q&A like that. So I'm a little bit like the guy off to the side at on a Jimmy Fallon show or whatever. So
Like the producer.
yeah, well, yeah, sort of a little bit. And then we have one camera locked in as a wide shot of the room. We have one camera that is close-ups, and that's we're following them. We have a wide shot of the entire room. That's kind of our pre-show. It's just a GoPro clicked to the grid in the ceiling, and we have a wide shot of the room, and so that kind of provides a little texture and background as everyone's waiting to come in, and they're kind of seeing that. Okay, yeah, this is not a guy sitting behind a laptop for the next 90 minutes, right? There's a little bit more going on. And that, I think that helps keep the attendees, right? Because there's it appears like there's really great production value. I mean, there is really great production value, but because of the way our team works, it's kind of put together in a little bit more of a casual way, and everyone's able to kind of roll with that. So
that's awesome. Oh my gosh, so cool. And then anyone from your team like sitting in the chat, chatting back and forth to kind of drive some audience engagement? So
I'm sitting in the chat and I'm doing the chat, and sometimes I answer the questions right there in chat, and then other times if it's a really good question strategically, I will ask those questions to the group and have them answered on camera. So and then occasionally I'll just provide an answer back directly as you can do on the platform, right? Yeah. I've got somebody else on our team that's just in the room, and fortunately this first time she didn't have to do anything. She's just sitting there in case of anything, like who knows what can happen, but there's somebody right there that can go run and grab
a production assistant runner, essentially
give me an answer. Right, exactly. So they whatever. So fortunately we didn't have to use her, but she's there. So that's the other so that's our team that's pulling this off. And then like I said, I'm on chat. I'm also on Slack with the rest of our team. So I got a few questions that no one in the room knew the answer to. So I was able to Slack the engineer and say, hey, can you tell me how this works? And fortunately they were on, they got right back to me. And so I was able to get that answer back out. And so, so far it's been great.
That's awesome. And
knock on wood, fingers crossed.
And then tech support, like you said that a lot of people, I know we said this off air, that no one had issues getting on. No, like, hey, I was having trouble. But do you guys have someone on your team who's just kind of, hey, call this number if you have trouble getting on?
So we have, so I don't know, we happen to be using Zoom for this one, and we have someone who is sort of our Zoom administrator. Actually, if I move my head, she sits right behind me. I guess she's at lunch, but she's back there, and she's just kind of monitoring the whole thing. Like everyone that's over the past 5 years, we've all sort of adopted, we've used all of the platforms. We've used WebEx, GoToMeeting. We used Adobe Connect for a while, which is sort of a weird one, but it actually has some really cool features. And we've kind of settled in on this, but we've all had them dump before in the middle of the session, or no one can hear the audio or whatever. And so she just kind of monitors all that in the background and makes sure that we're good and everything is, is happy. And so she's sitting back, and she's actually outside of the studio, completely away, just like a regular attendee would be. But she actually is the technically the host. So she kind of starts it up and turns it off and makes it all happen technically on the Zoom side. And then she also, we're streaming it live to Facebook. So we have a Facebook group. So because we're in the security industry, some things that we talk about are not like 100% open for just the whole world. And so we have a closed group. We've got about 2,000 people in our group. We built that up over the last couple of years, and that's a great virtual community too. I mean, I've been dropping these new products in there. I put some polls out last night to the group and said, hey, how's your business? Is it up? Is it down? And I was sort of surprised. Like everyone, the last 7 days, everyone says my business is about the same. But I expect in the next 7 days is going to go down, and about 30% said I expect it to stay the same. So, it's interesting times that we're living in, but having that virtual community that you can just reach out, have conversation, they can ask questions. Several people have said, hey, what are your resources for this or that? I got a great idea from a buddy of mine. I saw him post on LinkedIn that they do marketing for restaurants. And so, of course, we all know all the restaurants are shutting down. It's all takeout. So he had put together a whole packet of free Instagram, social media content for restaurants to use to advertise their takeout.
Oh, wow.
And I was like,
take the post instead.
How do we do that? So I just asked one of my graphic designers, hey, what can we do for our dealers that's the same way? And so we're a little later, probably tomorrow, we'll drop a whole graphic package that is all custom that we did for us, for our dealers. And we have it in all their different brand colors that they would want. And it's all how to prepare your home for, COVID-19. What does the CDC say? Here's what you do. Here's what you do. And it's all social friendly, ready to go. We don't have our logo on it. We just, we're just providing it for them because we want them to think like, hey, DMP, they got my back. And this is why I want to do business with them long term, right?
Yeah, totally. I definitely have seen that for sure. There's a lot of cases, do what you best can to help. And, you guys are not putting your logos and stuff on it, but that you basically gave them an asset for one less thing for them to worry about. So they'll remember that and feel like it was super helpful. Also, I'm just going to use a quick plug before I start firing away the questions that are kind of coming in from everybody. If anyone's interested as well, if you're listening to the Event Icon show right now, we have our own Facebook community as well, and we do the same thing. So we're actually live streaming this to the Facebook group. So if you're interested in getting in on that, you want to subscribe at event-icons.com. We'll shoot you an invite right away. So, okay, couple questions coming in, and let's do this and kind of related to the topic that you kind of brought up, which is what do you do? And this question is coming in from Lisa Thompson on LinkedIn. And so therefore transferring it over to Facebook. What do you do if everyone is virtual, including your speakers? So right now you guys have obviously, a studio set up and you're having your employees come in and everything like that. What would you guys do? You think you would do differently if, like, let's say, for example, your guys' office is 100% shut down. You have to do this 100% virtually. How would you attack it?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a challenge. And I think it's just something that you have to overcome. Like, I clicked onto the Today Show this morning and I saw that, one of the hosts wasn't feeling well. So they're literally, broadcasting split screen, just like we are here. And they're doing it, just basically the way, you're in Arizona, I assume. I'm in Missouri. And so that's the way it goes. It would be, it's a little bit more of a challenge for the production team. We actually did split screen on one of our previous events, not because we had people in different rooms. That was just part of the way that the production went. And so, you just have to roll with that. It's probably a challenge. I mean, obviously you want to make sure that you've got decent bandwidth, just like everyone. We've, right now, fortunately, we're all, we don't have a ton of confirmed cases in our area. And so, we're doing all the things, but we're also still manufacturing product. We're in security and fire alarm and access control, sort of essential services. And so we're continuing to manufacture, but we have sent, a portion of our folks home to work from home. And if you don't do that all the time, you realize, oh, well, I live in an apartment and my apartment blocks VoIP traffic on my internet provider, and I don't have any other choice for an internet provider. What do I do? So you have to overcome. So, all those things, when you have to just stop and jump and go virtual, you got to figure out. And probably one of the fastest things is you got to figure out what kind of internet connection do they have wherever that virtual place is, or that's your connection to the rest of the world, right?
Yeah, I think you bring up a super solid point that you have to be prepared for not only, you know, it's really easy when we hired speakers and things like that. Before we said, hey, come up, show up here. The AV company will mic you up and everything like that. You almost need to think that now that the speaker has to do a little bit of more work on their end. But in theory, I guess they have to do less because they don't have to like walk on stage. You can do it from home,
Walk
right?
around.
Yeah, exactly. But
Although you have to train, I no politics here, but you do have to train them not to walk off screen when they're doing a virtual event, right?
That's very true. That's very true. I mean, I think that's a very big part of it too, is training your remote speakers to be able to handle it and know what to do. And I think that's where we're going to see the people who are going to succeed are the ones who are learning right now how these platforms work, how they can have good microphones and things like that. And then, you know, same way, I think a tip that I have for everybody as well is same way that you have an AV company that mics up your speakers and make sure that they look good on camera and make sure the PowerPoint's working, you know, get a tech company to help you make sure that everything's running well. I mean, you guys are way ahead of, I think, most clients in being able to implement this internally. But I think a lot of people, if they aren't able to do this, get help and ask for people's help right now. And
Absolutely.
they're willing to help.
And so many people in the AV world all of their events are canceled. I mean, I'm in a Facebook group that's got, I don't know, 1,200, you know, AV guys in it, and they're all just sitting around like, what are we going to do? When is this going to end? And so, yeah, just because you're transitioning to virtual doesn't mean that you don't need AV technology. You definitely do. And those guys they need the work and they're looking for jobs and they're available. So, I mean, you know, maybe you have them bring in the gear and set it up on a one-time basis, or maybe you hire them to bring it in and do a permanent install in your location so you can always be set up. I mean, I see your sort of permanent studio install that you're in all the time right there, right? So
yeah, exactly. You know, we do so much content in here. Obviously, we're an AV company, so we're used to it. But yeah, I mean, I think you bring up a good point. I think that's one of the best pro tips right now I'm getting is tap into your AV companies. They want the help. They're willing to help, and they are dying for the business right now. And so they're definitely willing to help. So we got another question coming on in. I'll try to handle these kind of in order. I think we can kind of answer this in a two-part question. So we got a question coming in from Larry Vogel over on LinkedIn Live asking, what's the best platforms for producing compelling virtual events that go beyond just WebEx, replaces just canceled video seminar, maybe some pre-recorded content, demos, you know, PR like things, all these. There's lots of different things on there as well. And then we also have a question from Sally Arnold asking what's a way to track people's attendance for virtual events as well, and that her clients need, you know, continuing education units that need to be able to be distributed out there. So Mark, you know, what made you guys kind of choose? You guys obviously chose to do Zoom, which is a little bit I think on the basic side, right? It's just kind of watch and chat, and there's maybe some polling action.
Right.
What made you guys avoid doing a full virtual event platform for this one?
Well, so it was what we had in place, right? And so we weren't planning on doing this, so we hadn't really researched out a better solution. We knew, of course, that we can do this. I mean, one thing that I'm you know, I guess cognizant of is making sure that you don't overwhelm the downstream, you know, all your participants. Like I would love to be broadcasting, you know, 1080, but, you know, not if the audio or if it starts to get jittery. Right. And
1080 meaning like HD quality versus 720p, which is a little bit of a step down.
Yeah.
And versus everyone knows 4K, which is like above 1080. Just so everyone knows what that means.
Yeah. So, you know, Zoom's a pretty good job. I mean, obviously, you know, you don't want to, if you just like, we have a few Zoom rooms around here where you walk in and you start up a thing. And if you just start sharing your screen, you know, you have a giant screen with your computer and then you have a little tiny postage stamp of the live image. That's not really very engaging. And so we definitely knew that we wanted to do something better than that. There's a whole bunch of different hardware out there that you can do, and you contact your AV company and tell them what you want to do, and they'll recommend or they have it that you can rent it and bring it over. And of course, you know, you can, Will can help you, Endless can help you with all that stuff.
I didn't need him to say that, I swear.
Right. So we use I think the generic name is just like a web presenter. So there's several different of those, and you can
encoder that like captures the video, like the in-person video onto your computer, right?
Right. So if it's, you know, whether you're doing, you know, whatever platform you're using, these all kind of work, and they kind of sync up the audio too. because that's one of the things that you can really makes the difference, is to have good audio. And so you need to have that. If you're going to have multiple people, you probably need to have multiple mics and that sort of thing. So we chose that because that's what we knew. I'm going to be looking in some of the other things that are available, but for right now, that's what we're on, and so that's what we used. But we didn't just take the sort of the generic thing, right? We wanted to have a little bit more, and so that's why we ended up with multiple cameras, we actually do live demos of we make a security app, like everyone has a security system, they have an app. So we're doing live demos of that. So one of the inputs is Apple TV, and we're literally doing, AirPlay from a MacBook and AirPlay from an iPhone live switched into that. And then, this is one of the products that I love, and I don't know if they're not endorsing this, but we use ProPresenter instead of PowerPoint. And ProPresenter is a piece of software that allows you to do a lot more things than PowerPoint does. And so, we filtered in. We probably had 6 different videos that were already in the can that we had already done. And so when we would get to the point of that particular content, then we would just introduce and roll in a video. And then that also gives the talent, like, okay, you've got 90 seconds to take a breath, get a drink of water, straighten your jacket or whatever you're doing. And we can coach them a little bit and get them, keep them on track.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And if, by the way, if all these technical stuff, Mark's team is just I love working with you guys because you guys understand all the tech stuff. But if you don't know what ProPresenter is, web presenter, any of these tools, they sound like what you don't know what it is, this is what your AV company kind of comes in for. So don't hesitate to ask them. To answer Sally, I guess your kind of question too is how to track attendance. It's definitely possible, and I think the platform portion is the biggest question. I'm obviously not trying to turn this into a pitch or anything like that, but their technology exists, guys. Like, you can do anything. So yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Well, you and I were talking at our event in Florida when we were out there together. And, one of the bigger challenges for CEUs is actually a bigger challenge for live CEUs than it is for virtual. So with almost any virtual platform, you can see what their screen time is, what their activity, if they're paying attention, all kinds of, probably more, you can tell more about the person sitting in front of the computer than you want to, or that they want you to know. But, but you can definitely tell if they're paying attention, probably easier virtually than if they're live. So if you're doing a live event and there's CEUs tied to it, you were talking about there's some tools like some interactive badges where it's actually tracking, they left the room, they came back, how long they're gone, right? So virtually tracking CEUs is probably easier than doing it live.
I definitely 100% agree. I think that's what most people also, I think when you're thinking about these virtual platforms, everyone's like, well, how does this do? They don't just dream and think it's possible. And someone's probably come up with, it's the internet and it's the web, it's everything, anything's possible. For example, if you wanted to know how long, if someone's looking actually at the video you put on screen and that happened, if you want to do it, you could maybe track, them walking in and know the badge. But to do that in person, you would have to use like a camera and use facial recognition to see if they're making eye contact with the screen. Now you can do that. Like you literally can see Zoom knows whether it's minimized or not. I think it shows like a little clock icon or snooze if they're not looking at the screen. So you can tell if someone's like literally just making the screen minimized and then coming back to it. I'm sure there's a lot of other things on there as well. And we'll be Larry, just to kind of fully answer your question too. We'll be doing a lot more stuff on virtual events coming in about large scale platforms and things like that. So best thing you can do right now, subscribe, stay tuned. We got a lot of content coming down the road. So Mark, I want to talk a little bit about, oh my gosh, we only have a couple more minutes left. Talk a little bit about how you guys are maximizing opportunities to sell. Because I think a lot of people are worried about this, is that, look, how can I make this a good selling opportunity? How can I bring exhibitors in to sell and things like that? What sort of tips do you guys have for being able to, you talked about the demos and the screen sharing, which is really cool. What sort of things are you guys doing to make it value add and selling in a good mix? Yeah,
so absolutely. One of my favorite quotes, I saw it on LinkedIn this morning, and I immediately grabbed it and popped it into my Facebook group, is from Sun Tzu. It says, when chaos exists, or when chaos, I don't know what it says. When there's chaos, opportunity exists, right? So you get the picture. And we all want to be sensitive, and we all want to, not take advantage of anything, right? But at the the end of the day, we provide products that secure lives and families, and that who doesn't need more security now, right? So, and we need to support our customers. And so, if all of your customers are shut down and they're at home, then the support that you provide them may look different than what we happen to be doing. But right now, the demand for our particular products are up, and so we're trying to fulfill that. So, obviously we had a whole, product launch plan of a whole bunch of different products that we needed to fulfill and keep those rolling out and moving out.
That you guys are planning on launching at the trade show?
Yeah, exactly. And so, so we had, that's some of those projects are year long, so you just can't stop them. In a lot of ways, you kind of can't think on the next thing until you get the one thing finished sometimes. So it's, okay, we're going to get that done. We're going to get that out so we can continue moving on. And oftentimes, software and hardware that works together, they're all dependent on each other. So you can't just like stop in place because the next feature set or the next hardware is dependent on the things that you're releasing today. So we're continuing to move forward. We're continuing to, sell product. One of the things, one of the cool things that happened. So one guy asked a question, it's like, oh, I didn't know, this is brand new. I didn't know about this. Could I get somebody to come demo that at my company? And he asked that in the QA box. And so I said, hey, Dave, absolutely. I'll get somebody scheduled to do that. Well, so our VP of training is watching this live. He sees that go out. He slacks the trainer that's in that territory and says, hey, I need you to make an appointment with Dave. He contacted him before our webinar was over with and made an appointment, and then bounced back to me and said, hey, your guys already contacted me. We're good to go. So, I mean, that's a great success story, right? Like a customer out there in the world just says, hey, I need to know more. And, plus for me is I didn't have to close a loop. Someone actually closed a loop for me, so I can scratch that off my list. But our whole team was on it, and so our entire sales team, our entire training team, spread out across the country. Most of them were in customer locations today as they were watching this live. So they had picked out who's my biggest opportunity, who's my customer that will allow me to show up at their location, because that's an issue right now. And so they were there. Some of them were just texting with folks. So we had, we always ask, you don't have to do this, but we always ask people to register to attend. I think that's a good, if you're not doing that to your virtual events, you definitely should do that, because then who's planning on attending and who's not. You'll also see, and you don't be disappointed about this. For us, our numbers look like, if we get 100 people to sign up for an event, we get about 50 people that actually show up for the event. And then we record them. We put them on our Facebook or on our website where people can get to them. And we'll usually have an additional 50 or 75. We'll get more people watching it, the recorded version, than we did the live version over time, over the next couple of weeks. And so we just have a routine. We have a place on our website where all of that stuff goes, and we've kind of trained our people like, hey, if we're having a webinar and you miss it, you can go and you can see it here. And then also, you can have the tool, depending on your tool, you can have it just automatically send an email out with here's a link to the recorded version.
I love that.
We ran it. We exported out our list of who's attending, sent it out to all of our sales team, and said, hey, figure out who your best opportunity is, touch base with them, see who's registered, see who's not registered, and then, go hit them up. So we had, our entire team was working on this because otherwise they would all be standing around the trade show booth in Las Vegas, right? So all of our calendars were clear.
That's what I love. Yeah. I was going to say, I think that the one thing that is right now is how many people were supposed to be on events right now. And yeah, your whole team would have been clear anyway. So, you have all this time now. Let's maximize it as much as possible. Yep. Which is just absolutely huge. Okay. We have a couple minutes left. So I think I'm going to ask my wrap-up questions because I think we can be here forever. But obviously, Mark, we will probably have to have you come up. I'll follow up. If you guys have questions, make sure to submit them in the comments on social or shoot us an email, event@helloendless.com. And we can also get you in touch with Mark so that way he can explain a little bit more of how he's done this.
Sure. Happy to.
As well. But let's jump into our last kind of final wrap-up questions I have. So let's start with the first one, which is if you had to pick like one tip for people who are going through this crisis of how do I turn my in-person event into a virtual event, what do you think that your one single tip would be for them?
I don't know if I have one single tip. I would say one, don't be afraid of the technology. Lean on somebody that understands how it works, right? So, I mean, wherever you get that, your AV company, wherever. Second, do rehearsals. That really helps iron stuff out. Like, don't just assume that everything's going to work the way that it's supposed to. So, get that figured out, do a rehearsal. And I guess my last thing, and this is what we discovered the very first time that we did a live broadcast like this to now, is invest in some comms. So if you have multiple people on the AV side and you don't have communication where, like where they can, like a headset and a micro, right? Like you see that,
like instantaneous conferencing that people can talk over each other and everything like that. Yeah.
So initially we thought, we're just going to chat. We'll like Slack back and forth. But the reality is, in the middle of an event like that, you don't have time to type. Your fingers forget how to spell, and none of it works. So the comms made a huge difference. So those are my 3 tips.
That's incredible. I mean, 3 for 1, everyone. I mean, there you go. What would you take? I love the comm idea too. I think that, as events go purely virtual, right, and everyone's distributed to each other, I'm excited to see what tools kind of pop up out of there. But maybe it's something like opening up a private Zoom chat for all the producers in the team, and everyone has, Bluetooth headsets in and is able to talk back and forth with each other. Something like that, maybe. There's so many options out there. I love that. I think that's absolutely fantastic, Mark. All right. So then resources. Any resources, where do you go? What are your favorite books, blogs, resources to learn about things, to stay on top of what's going on? What's your favorite resource? It can be anything from gadgets, books, blogs. You said the comm system, I think, is a great resourse.
Yeah.
What other sort of resources you got for everybody?
So, I try to hang out with people that are a lot younger than I am. And so that might be a tip as well. I try to hang out and listen to folks. I mean, I listen to you. I was listening to you Sunday night when this topic came up, and we were kind of joking around a little bit. I was giving you a hard time about having a sign language person on your screen. But yeah, so I don't have a really great go-to. I like to see what items are for sale. I like to see what people are doing. When I go to events, I'm a nerd. I like to get back behind the curtain and see what everybody's using, and then go look it up on, whatever website and read about it and learn about it and just talk to people. I know a lot of people that do, sort of live events for churches, because in our area we have quite a bit of that. And so there's actually, that's a great way to, if you find somebody that is good live event person that's volunteering at a church, they would probably make a great employee for your company, because they're already doing it and they love for free, right? So, or at least just a great resource to ask, how does this work? How does this not work? And depending on the size and the budget and things, you can. I mean, some of these small churches do some pretty amazing things on a shoestring. So.
So very true, sir. I think that's such a good piece of advice. So I don't think anyone's ever given that on the podcast before, but the fact that churches are such a great production resource, that these churches, they spend a lot of money on the newest mixers and screens, and they're doing a lot of the same stuff that you would do in a corporate meeting, but they're doing it for free. And what's great is a lot of times those people, they volunteered and they learned everything. And sometimes they have to have one person runs all the tech together. You can get a lot out of that person. It's almost like, great training. So if you also maybe want to learn about the production stuff too, maybe also really good to go maybe volunteer at a church and learn the tech side of things as well.
No, sure absolutely. Volunteer. There's a church. I can't remember off the top of my head. There's a church in Texas that has online training where it is like best of class, AV training for folks, and you can go volunteer over the course of time. And I know people that have left their professional jobs and taken jobs, in media after the training that they go through at the organization. So yeah, there's all kinds of opportunities.
I might have to find this training and maybe we'll figure out a way to get a link to it. We'll see if we can find it and share it down below. We'll share all links to all the resources that Mark has shared on the blog that we'll be publishing very, very soon. So if you are catching the end of this live right now, we will be publishing on event-icons.com for you to catch. But Mark, I appreciate literally 15 minutes after you guys finish your first session of your virtual event, hopping on and being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure. It's been an honor to be here with everybody and just share a little bit about what we're doing and what our team is doing. So half of my team is like, why are they talking to you? You didn't do anything, and I was like, well, that's true. You guys did all of it.
Actually doing it.
The screen's not big enough for everyone, so someone
Yeah, well, we'll get in. I think if you guys want to see a part 2 and see the rest of Mark's entire team on the show, you'll have to let us know you know how to do it. Reach us, hashtag Event Icons on social, or email eventicons@HelloEndless. And I think we'll have to get you back here, Mark. And I'm sure we'll be continuing the conversation. You guys are going to learn a lot as well. And I'm sure I can't wait to see once you guys get to the end, because you have 3 days left of this.
We have, so do we have 2 more days? So today and 2 more days. Yeah.
Cool.
And hey, I want to let you know, we booked 2021 and 2022. So we'll be seeing you in Las Vegas for the next 2 years.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Fantastic. See, you guys, just because we have to focus on virtual events right now doesn't mean live events are dead. Use this as a chance to learn and grow. And maybe, I'm sure, Mark, you guys are going to learn so much. You guys might even put on a hybrid event in the future where you can have some people online and some people in person.
We definitely have people ask for that. One of the people said, hey, would you do this after every trade show? I like this as well as walking around our trade show. And so we're going to do a survey. We have a whole survey of everyone in attend that's going to go out this afternoon, and we'll get feedback on the event. And one of the questions is, should we do this for after every trade show? And I think the answer already is yes.
Awesome. That's so fantastic. Well, Mark, thank you again for coming and being on the air and being on the show. Really appreciate it. Look forward to working with you continually, and we'll see. Hope to see you very, very soon in person and get to shake some hands.
All right. Or bump some elbows or do the Corona kick.
Exact Corona kick.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, thank you. And thank you to the audience, everyone who asks questions. We obviously want to fit all of your guys' questions, but we only have an hour to do all this. If you have additional questions, shoot us over an email, eventicons@helloendless.com, or hashtag eventicons on social media. Continue the conversation down in the comments on the live show, and make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, event-icons.com. We're on all your favorite podcasting platforms. We're on Spotify. We're on iTunes. Man, I can't even think of podcasting platforms now at this point. Go subscribe and don't miss any of the future content we got coming down the pipeline about virtual events coming down the future. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll see you guys all next time on Event Icons.
Thank you for joining us for another amazing episode of Hashtag Event Icons.
To catch all the bonus content, resources mentioned, and an invite to our Facebook and LinkedIn groups,
Head to www.event-icons.com. Also, let us know what you thought about this week's episode. Share your biggest takeaway. Just tag your post with hashtag Event Icons. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you again for joining us. We'll see you next Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, right here on Hashtag Event Icons.